Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Xiaolin Perspectives, and today we're going to be discussing episode 20 of Xiaolin Showdown, Enter the Dragon, and this episode's another dojo-focused episode. Albeit, while the last time this happened, Dojo was the main protagonist, this time he's the main antagonist, so to speak. Basically, how this episode opens is that Dojo is hurriedly trying to build a kennel for himself. Why? Because apparently every 1500 years, Dojo is afflicted with a certain ailment. Basically, what happens is that he gains an immense hunger for Shengong Wu that is so great that he will devour everything in his path just to get to them. And unfortunately, the last time that he was apparently let out during one of these cravings, he sunk Atlantis. Point is, when Dojo is in this state of mind, he is very dangerous. And so when Dojo can feel the mood coming over him, he actually has to build a pseudo-prison for himself. Hence why he's creating this carrier. As basically, in order for him to overcome this thing, he has to be locked in the carrier for 24 hours until it passes and he's back to normal. But till then, he needs to stay away from people. And we can already see that he's already starting to show symptoms of the affliction, as he's a little bit more jumpy, a little bit more hurried, and basically even trying to find excuses not to go into the carrier, especially since apparently he senses a new Shengong Wu revealing itself, something called the Tunnel Armadillo, which is supposed to be an armadillo that has the power to transform into a underground drilling implement. Basically, it's just a drill that you can allow whoever uses it to go underground. It's kind of awesome, but point is, he thinks that with that Shengong Wu revealing itself, it gives him an excuse to not go in the carrier, since, well, Dojo's the resident Shengong Wu tracker, but Master Feng says that that Dojo can just draw the Xiaolin monks a map, and they can take the silver manta ray to go get it. However, Master Feng states that one of the monks does need to stay behind to keep an eye on Dojo, just to make sure he doesn't break out of the kennel, and he ends up volunteering Omi for the job. I'm assuming because Omi immediately tried shoving the job onto Raimundo, because, again, Omi is still somewhat classist because Raimundo was the last of the Xiaolin monks to become a Xiaolin apprentice. Omi, everybody. Point is, Omi's gotten the job while the other three Xiaolin monks take the silver manta ray to where the Tunnel Armadillo is. And it's somewhere in the Alps, and at first the Xiaolin monks think they're gonna get it, only for Jack Spicer to arrive in a brand new assault vehicle, which of course is another ship/hovercraft or whatever. Point is, he's here for the Wu. And the thing is, Wuya is fully aware that Dojo is gonna be locked up for 24 hours, so she thinks this is a golden opportunity for them to get one over on the good guys. And apparently get one over they do, as while the Xiaolin monks try to fight off Jack Spicer, even pulling out their individual Shengong Wu to fight them, which in this case is the monkey staff, the tongue of Sai Ping, and the changing chopsticks, Jack wipes the floor with them almost immediately as he pulls out the glove of Jisaku, which they got one episode prior, and uses it to pretty much pull all the Shengong Wu right to him, which of course includes the aforementioned Shengong Wu the Xiaolin monks had, as well as a Tunnel Armadillo. So yeah, not really a good day for the Xiaolin monks, and it's not going to get any better, because back at the temple, while Dojo does make the final preparations to get himself locked inside his kennel, he warns Omi that he's going to be a wily one, that he's going to try everything he can to try and trick Omi to get him out of the kennel. And immediately upon Omi putting a lock on the kennel, Dojo just puts on the waterworks. He tries telling Omi a sob story about how he needs to get some food in him, which consists of some egg rolls that are nearby. And so he continually keeps trying to tell Omi, come on, yeah, let me out, go get those egg rolls. And what I even love is that the first time he asks that, Omi does almost let him out, only for Dojo to yell at him and says, that was a test, what are you doing? I don't know, it's just funny. But yeah, after that test, it's all in earnest. And as he said, he tries everything in the book to get Omi to let him out, including utilizing his shape-shifting prowess to shift into various forms in order to trick Omi into getting him out of the box, including taking on the form of Master Feng, a random little girl, Omi's mother, and even Omi himself, and it's just pissing Omi off something fierce, and he wants Dojo to shut up. As such, Dojo tries giving Omi maybe a compromise, that maybe Omi could just slip the egg rolls through the bars. And Omi does almost do that, but when he reaches the kennel, he finds that it's somehow bereft of Dojo. And when he goes inside the kennel to see what happened, Yeah, it turns out Dojo used his shapeshifting again. Only this time he flattened himself against the interior of the kennel and then changed his color schemes to match the kennel exactly. As such, with Omi inside the kennel, he slips out and then slams the door behind him, locking Omi inside. As such, Dojo immediately grows to giant size, and we see another side effect of the ailment as he ends up growing a second head. And what I love is that when the second head grows, even Dojo looks a little surprised by it. When it appears, of course, he gets grossed out until the head grows out in earnest. And yeah, both Dojo heads immediately grab the egg rolls and just scarf them down. However, before the Dojos can turn their attentions on Omi, they say they have to leave because they're sensing another Shengang Wu, but they do promise the young monk that they will be back for him as they fly off. And, yeah, that doesn't exactly go well, as the other Xiaolin monks do end up arriving and finding Omi in the kennel, and while at first that they think it might be Dojo pretending to be Omi, well, thanks to Omi's unique eccentricities, they're able to identify it's him and let him out, but the instant Master Feng realizes that Dojo has out, he is immediately worried and knows that this is not good news. In fact, he actually sounds a little angry with it, which I guess makes sense. Because this was because like he said, the last time that Dojo was let out, he sunk Atlantis. But to further emphasize how screwed they are, there's an immediate explosion of darkness, like just over the horizon. It's kind of like when Wuya regained her physical form, and there was like an explosion of power from when she regained her body. Well, it's exactly like that, but it doesn't radiate the same aura, but the setting is basically the same, and even Master Feng says that it's begun 1,000 years of darkness, which also leads to a funny joke where Kimiko asks why 1,000, and Master Feng says actually it's 962 years, but 1,000 sounds more ominous. Either way, world is fucked, and apparently even Wuya has figured out that everything's gone wrong, as while she and Jack are getting the next Shengang Wu that Dojo mentioned, she actually screams so bad that she actually cracks the glass on Jack's new vehicle, and actually tells Jack that they need to run. And here's the thing, Wuya, throughout the entire series, has never shown a lick of fear about something. Even when she was facing off against Dashi, that was more shock. In fact, actually, scratch that. The last time she felt fear was when the puzzle box was open, because that was a legitimate threat to her. But even at every other point in the series, she has not shown a lick of fear. Anger, maybe some light sadness, some joy, but never a fear. So seeing her actively freaking out and telling Jack, we need to run and we need to hide, is a first for her. So you know that this is this is very dangerous. However, Jack doesn't really give a shit about this. After all, Wuya told him that this is just that Dojo's the root of all this. So it's Dojo. What does he care? As such, Jack continues trying to root around for the Shengang Wu they came to collect, which in this case is a plant called the Juju Fly Trap, which has the power to unleash a swarm of flies on anyone that you point it at. Kind of love that too. And it's also located at a lake, which is important because of things that happen later. Either way, Jack gets a Shengang Wu and is about to make a getaway until Dojo appears and jump scares him. As such, Jack is a little shocked to see how intimidating the little dragon it was, or the formerly little dragon is, and so he immediately unloads all of his weapons on Dojo. And Dojo just brushes them all off before telling Jack to hit him with his best shot. Jack kind of shrinks because he used that up already. As such, he immediately turns his vehicle into its aquatic mode and tries hiding in the lake. And Dojo's response is to just pull out a couple straws and then start sipping up the lake. As such, using the changing chopsticks, Jack tries to hide the vehicle under a rock, but Dojo finds him immediately and then eats Jack. So yeah, he really is serious. Meanwhile, back with the Xiaolin monks, their plan is to just take the Shengang Wu and probably run, but unfortunately, well, actually, it's more like they're preparing for battle, but it's clear that it's not going to be an easy fight, especially when Dojo arrives on the scene and makes it clear that he is going to, he's coming for the Shengang Wu, and he ain't taking no for an answer. And while the Xiaolin monks try and use the Shengang Wu they have to fight him, well, all of it ends in failure, as one by one each of the Xiaolin monks are eaten until it's only Omi left, and Omi sadly doesn't even stand a chance, as Dojo laughs in his face before eating him, and subsequently a good chunk of the temple along with him. As such, thankfully, Dojo never learned to chew his food. So while everyone does get swallowed by Dojo, they're all in one piece and manage to huddle together inside Dojo's stomach without actually being digested. Unfortunately, though, that doesn't really help them in the long run because they're still stuck in Dojo. However, in the midst of all this, Omi admits that he has formulated a plan, but in order to execute the plan, he needs 3 specific Shengong Wu: the Reversing Mirror, the Shroud of Shadows, and the Changing Chopsticks. And the Xiaolin monks are able to find the former 2 Shengong Wu, but as for the Changing Chopsticks, those are in Jack's possession now. And well, when they confront Jack and want the Changing Chopsticks, he's actually more than willing to hand it over, because apparently Jack Spicer's a little claustrophobic, and he wants to get out of here. Which when Jack hands the chopsticks over, Wu at first yells at him and tells him not to do that, before he asks, wait, why are you still here? Can't you just leave whenever you want? And Wu's like, yeah, good point. And then she just flies out, much to Jack's chagrin. Either way, though, with all 3 Shengong Wu in possession, Omi immediately asks for the next part of his plan to be put into place, which in this case requires Kimiko to use her fire element to turn up the heat inside Dojo, which she does, and it causes the dragon to start sweating. And as such, Omi ends up using the Changing Chopsticks to shrink himself down, and, well, as Dojo sweats, Omi is absorbed into his, I'm gonna say, his skin as part of his sweat, and Dojo literally just sweats him out. As such, as a part of his sweat, Dojo's able to ride along with Omi's able to ride on Dojo as he flies around until eventually Dojo arrives in a large canyon where it turns out he's been looking for another Shengong Wu. In this case, a Shengong Wu called the Silk Spitter, which has the power to literally shoot web. I'm not even kidding. Get the monkey staff in this thing together and you can become the Xiaolin version of Spider-Man. Point is, though, when Dojo grabs the Silk Spitter, that's when Omi makes his move, as he uses the Changing Chopsticks, and for some reason the Reversing Mirror, to return himself to normal size, and immediately he ends up grabbing the Silk Spitter while Dojo's holding it. And so he ends up challenging the dragon to a Xiaolin showdown, with Dojo wagering the Fist of Tebigong, as he needed a Shengong Wu to wager and he coughed that one up, and Omi wagering the Changing Chopsticks. And the challenge? It's essentially a game of catch. Whoever can capture the other person first is the winner. And so, Xiaolin showdown time. And again, as always, really kick-ass effects, as the entire canyon actually erupts in rock, and it goes from like a simple rock canyon that looks like it's out in the desert into a giant fucking labyrinth. That, to show you the scale, it shows you this thing going for miles and miles, and there's just one little section where apparently Omi and Dojo are. And Dojo's a fucking giant dragon too, so this place is big even for him. So, again, it's awesome. I love it. As such, with the yellow Gong Yi Tung Pai, Omi just makes a run for it with Dojo hot on his trail. And thankfully, Omi is able to outmaneuver Dojo enough so the giant dragon doesn't catch him, but it's still not exactly a winning battle, as Omi is still running around and eventually even gets himself cornered, with Dojo just was thinking that he's going to easily win this before he tries to make a dive at Omi, but it turns out that Omi has gotten a few tricks up his sleeve, as he not only used the Changing Chopsticks to win this battle, but the Reversing Mirror and the Shroud of Shadows, which I'll talk about that later. And at one point, just as Dojo has Omi cornered on what looks like a lava pit, Omi manages to evade him using the Shroud of Shadows, which causes Dojo to get a mouthful of lava, which somehow causes him to get squeamish, even though he breathes fire. And as such, Omi mocks Dojo, saying that he's a worthy opponent, maybe he'll get another chance to beat him again, which gets Dojo so mad that he dives at the monk. But when Omi steps out of the way, Dojo suddenly gets all cramped up, much to his own confusion. And it turns out, while Omi was inside Dojo, he grabbed another little trinket. The kennel that Dojo created. And using the Changing Chopsticks and the Reversing Mirror, he made this thing grow giant. And he hid it, and he managed to use the Shroud of Shadows to hide it. As such, with Dojo now thrown inside, Omi shrinks the kennel back to its proper size, and then puts the lock on it, and so because he captured Dojo, he wins the showdown, winning the Silk Spitter and the Fist of Tebigong. As such, Dojo thanks Omi for stopping him, that he never saw that move coming, and now that everything's done, can Omi let him out? Which causes Omi to just give him a raised eyebrow, where Dojo says, okay, yeah, you're right, but you can't blame a dragon for trying. As such, from there, the episode ends as we cut back to the temple, as the crisis has thankfully passed. Dojo has spit up all the other Xiaolin monks, and yeah, the temple's in tatters, but Omi is put in charge of cleaning it up, which, there's a part of me that thinks maybe that's a little unnecessary, but at the same time, the ramifications of letting Dojo out resulted in the near end of the world, so maybe, I don't know. Point is, Omi is taking full responsibility for his fuck up, but while Dojo, apparently he's just got a good bit of amnesia. Apparently he does not remember a thing about his little freak out, and it's all just one big blank. Although he is still having some stomach issues as a result of that, and before the episode ends, he does spit up one more figure as he ends up spitting out Jack Spicer, as apparently he was still in Dojo's stomach. Sorry, Chingy came in. But yeah, that was Enter the Dragon, and my thoughts on it? I enjoyed it. I actually kind of like this episode. When it comes down to it, I feel like this episode is pure filler, if that makes any sense. I mean, when it comes down to certain aspects of the episode, there are things about it that, of course, are carried over and continued on later in the series. Like the Shengung Wu that Jack Spicer steals in this episode, he keeps for later episodes, so, that's all well and good. The Shengung Wu that reveal themselves in this episode, of course, come back later. But when it comes down to, like, big plot revelations or anything that happens to it, there's nothing really to it. There's not, in fact, when it comes down to the moral, I don't even know if there is a moral. I guess the idea is to treat any responsibilities are given seriously and not just overlook them, but I feel like that really isn't much of a lesson, because even in the episode, Omi was tricked. He knew he was taking the job he was given very seriously. It's just that Dojo pulled a fast one on him, and it caused Omi, as a result of that, accidentally let him out, which could have happened to literally anybody. So I wouldn't even really call that Omi slacking on the job. It's just that he made a boo-boo, which happens sometimes. And yeah, I can understand him still needing to pay for the ramifications of said boo-boo, because, this boo-boo nearly ended the world. But at the same time, it doesn't really feel like that the whole "you have to take your responsibilities seriously" lesson is really well enforced in this episode. And as a result, I wouldn't really say this episode has, like, a big moral quandary or something. It doesn't really further any character for anybody. It's just a thing that happens. But to be fair, it's entertaining. Honestly, I just kind of like this whole idea, because as I've talked, like I mentioned when I looked at the last episode where Dojo was the main focus, it's kind of cool to see this regular comic relief character who usually is on the sidelines helping out the main characters take center stage. But whereas with Night of the Sapphire Dragon had him as a hero role, having to try and adapt to the situation and eventually being the one to take down the big bad of the episode, which in that case was the Sapphire Dragon, for this episode, it's kind of fun to see Dojo just go into full villain mode, because it's clear that he's chewing the scenery something fierce, which could be metaphorical and literal, considering that his ravenous appetite caused him to eat everything he comes across. But it's just kind of fun seeing Dojo just go full villain in the episode. Just him going after everyone, being intimidating, laughing at them as they try to stop him, just chewing up everything he can, mocking the heroes, and just being a complete and utter douche nozzle, but in the best way possible. It's fun to watch him just ham it up and be this over the top villain. It's enjoyable. I like that. So yeah, they do showcase that he can be a legitimate threat, as apparently in this affliction, Dojo's a lot more powerful than he normally is. Because yeah, while Dojo typically can turn into a large dragon whenever he wants to, as we've seen in other episodes, he typically doesn't have a lot of fire to him even when he's a big dragon. Keep in mind that the last time he took center stage as a main character, he required Clay's family hot sauce just to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Sapphire Dragon. Whereas in this episode, he not only can full-on breathe fire on command, but all of Jack's best attacks do nothing to him. So yeah, apparently this affliction does more to Dojo than just make him hungry. Apparently it also makes him more durable. I'm guessing maybe the idea is that it gives him like a power boost or something, hence why he grew the second head. But either way, even with all that in mind, it's just kind of fun seeing him be the villain. So I enjoyed that, and seeing him just kind of walk through all the Xiaolin warriors and Jack Spicer. It's, again, it helps raise the stakes, and and helps keep you invested in the story. It's, again, a lot of fun. And how the conflict just was, and there are plenty of good jokes and so forth throughout the episode, including including all the stuff, including Dojo doing all these various tricks to try and get Omi to let him out of his kennel. I like seeing Wuya fucking go visceral when she learned that Dojo was released from his kennel, which again, it's one of the few times that you see her legitimately freak out in the series, so that was actually kind of fun. And then likewise, the end of the episode where Omi and Dojo had their showdown, it's, again, a lot of fun. It's nice that, again, the environments are really cool. I loved how the canyon they were in just turned into an almost mega-sized labyrinth, which genuinely looked really awesome. And I kind of loved Omi and Dojo's reaction when they saw it. And then likewise, the chase with the Dojo chasing Omi throughout it was a lot of fun, and seeing Omi ultimately outsmart Dojo, it was cool and fun. It was cool and enjoyable. So, on that regard, I think it's nice. I like it. The action is still cool. We got some good jokes even with Jack Spicer, especially when we learn he's claustrophobic. And, again, when it comes down to it, the episode really does feel, from a plot perspective, as just kind of filler, but it's entertaining filler. Like I said, it's fun to see Dojo chewing the scenery as the main villain for once. It's cool to see. It's fun. The action, of course, is still a lot of fun. I like some of the jokes they have present. I love seeing Dojo just going all out. I liked the final showdown and how it was implemented. It's ultimately, again, just a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. I will say this, there is one aspect of this episode that does actually add to the lore a little bit, and that was, honestly, during the Xiaolin showdown. So, as we've seen in previous episodes, whenever a Xiaolin showdown has been called, typically the players in said showdown usually only use the Shen Gong Wu they wagered. To give an example, I think, last episode, Omi wagered the Wings of Tanabe and the Orb of Tornami, and those are the only Shen Gong Wu he used. And likewise, that's been the case throughout every other episode of Xiaolin Showdown. And while we have seen in other episodes that apparently opponents can steal the other Shen Gong Wu, usually when it comes down to a Xiaolin Showdown, the players in said showdown only use the Shen Gong Wu that they've wagered. But this is the first episode where we see someone cheat, so to speak. In this case, while Omi only wagered the changing chopsticks in the showdown, he used 3 Shen Gong Wu. Not just the changing chopsticks, but also the reversing mirror and the Shroud of Shadows. 2 Shen Gong Wu that he did not wager. And yet, Omi doesn't face any repercussions from using that, even though, technically speaking, that's cheating. After all, when it comes to the established rules of Xiaolin Showdown, you typically just use the Shen Gong Wu that you wager. But, again, this episode has Omi essentially break that rule. Which I find a little fascinating, and shows something a little more loose when it comes to how Xiaolin Showdowns are performed. As, while Xiaolin Showdowns typically have, a basic outline, apparently the only real rule when it comes down to a Xiaolin Showdown is that both parties have to fight over a Shen Gong Wu, and they can bet Shen Gong Wu in the battle, and then they just have to win using the preset conditions. Otherwise, how they get that win is completely up to them. And admittedly, we've seen this showcased in other episodes. Like in the very first episode, when Jack Spicer and Omi got into a Xiaolin showdown over the Eye of Dashi, Jack at one point did cheat and sicked his robots on Omi. But the thing is, that wasn't technically against the rules. It was bending the rules slightly, but the robots were just robots, drones, things that Jack Spicer created. And yes, I know that there have been showdowns where robots have been players in the showdown. But in this case, they were literally just extra people to act as hindrances to Omi. They weren't actively a part of the showdown. In this case, however, we actually see Omi essentially cheat in the showdown by using Shen Gong Wu that he didn't wager. And yet, he doesn't face any penalties for that during the showdown. He goes through the showdown like there's no problem, and the instant he has Dojo trapped in the kennel, he wins, because he won by the set standards of the showdown, which in this case was catch the other opponent first. And so, it's just kind of a strange little detail that I kind of find unique, that that when it comes down to the rules of a Shaolin Showdown, the only real preset rule that will ensure that you get all the Shengang Wu bet in the showdown is just winning. How you get that win does not matter. As long as you win the showdown, it won't matter. It'll work. It will still count. And I kind of find that almost fascinating. That it's essentially like like it's an honor code. So it's like the honor, like when you go into a Xiaolin Showdown, it's essentially the rules are essentially treated like an honor system. You're expected to follow them, but there's no punishment if you don't. It's just that you're breaking the rules. That's all. It's bad form to break the rules, but no one's gonna stop you if you do, which I honestly just kind of find that a little intriguing, so to speak, as this is the first time in the series that we've actually seen someone cheat in a Xiaolin Showdown, and it's not going to be the last time either. Only the next time it's done by a bad guy, and the heroes call it out, even though Omi did that in this episode, so whatever. Either way, I just kind of like that. It's another facet of Xiaolin Showdowns that I kind of like seeing showcased. So I actually do kind of like it, and it is a nice subtle way of world building and lore growing, so to speak. And of course, since this episode did showcase several new Shengang Wu, we should talk about them as well. In this case, the Tunnel Armadillo. We don't see this thing get used until I think later in the series, but I think it's a cool. Again, it's essentially a vehicle like the Silver Manta Ray, but whereas the Silver Manta Ray is a hovercraft, a Tunnel Armadillo is a drill that can drill into the earth, which it's not as versatile as other Shengang Wu, but what it is good at, it's really good at, and as a result, I think it is a pretty cool one, so again, I dig it. The Juju Flytrap, again, also a cool Shengang Wu, because it's a plant that actually shoots out a swarm of bugs at your opponent. I think that's actually pretty useful, so again, like it. And of course, the final Shengang Wu, which in this case was the Silk Spitter. It shoots web. I kind of love that. I want that Shengang Wu. Give it to me. I want to be Spider-Man. Point is, I like it. So, but yeah, on the whole, Enter the Dragon, it's a filler episode, but it's enjoyable filler. Yeah, there's not really much of a moral when it comes down to it, and the events of this episode are only really showcased later on, only really have an effect on the major overarching plot in the sense of who has what Shengang Wu, but on the whole, it was fun to see Dojo act as the villain. It was fun seeing him ham it up. There were some good jokes, some good action, some actually nice tension and drama when you saw Dojo acting as the villain. The showdown was a lot of fun. You got some good laughs at Jack Spicer's expense. Overall, just an enjoyable episode, so yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson. I hope to see you next week. Take care.